Good evening, everyone. It is your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I am really glad to be with you for another episode of the BGC Book Club. So please come on in the room, and get ready for what's going to be a really exciting conversation with someone I met about a year and a half ago, and it's our first chance to actually have a real sit down and talk about her work and her journey as an author and all of those great things. So I am coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, by way of Cleveland, Ohio, and a bunch of other places in between. So if you don't mind, please share where you're joining us from, just so we can have an idea of who all is in the room. Now, not only is this show special because of our guests, but it's also special because as of yesterday, which was the 27th, April 27th, if you're watching in real time, that was the 5-year anniversary of when I first started doing the BGC book club. So over the years, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many wonderful Black women writers, with a few good men thrown in there in between as well. But I consider it an honor to be able to do this every week, many times twice a week with you all, and introduce or reintroduce or just have great conversations with these beautiful, wonderful, brilliant Black women authors. So thank you to all of you for being here and being a part of it. And thank you to all of the authors who have been a part of this journey. And there's so many more to come. So with that being said, tonight's special guest is here to talk about Losing Sight. And if you see, I matched the book today. Losing Sight is by Tati Richardson. Now, she is the author of The Build Up, which was named one of Amazon's best books of 2023 and a book list top romances of 2023. She is also co-founder of the Romance in Color podcast and an Apple Books writer to watch. Under the name T.M. Richardson, she writes steamy, indie published works such as the USA Today bestseller, The Oath. She's a native of Atlanta and lives in the suburbs with her husband and daughter. She collects red lipstick, so as you can see, I'm wearing my red today as well. Wonder Woman memorabilia, unique eyewear, and she didn't mention it in this bio, but I also know that she loves to change her look with wigs. So we're going to probably talk about a couple of those things as we get to know Miss Tati. So without any further delay, let's welcome Tati Richardson to the BGC Book Club. Welcome, Tati.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so good. I'm so happy to have you here. As I
Thank
mentioned,
you.
we met back in December 2023 at the Jubilee of Reading conference. Saw you
Mhm.
last year at the Decatur Book Festival, and
Yes,
finally, we are here to have our first of many sit down. So
yes.
welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's a long time coming. Yeah.
It's a long time coming. It is a long time coming. So before we get into talking about your wonderful book, Losing Sight, I really want to just learn a little bit about you, because there might be some people who are watching who are seeing you for the first time and don't know much about, who is Tatiana T.M. Richardson.
Me and all my names.
All your names and putting them all out there so people can find all your books. So that's the reason
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
I'm sure that
But
they,
I publish under both Tati Richardson and T.M. Richardson.
yes.
Tati Richardson is my contemporary rom-com, a little lighter fare. Usually my trad stuff is under traditionally published stuff is under Tati Richardson, and my indie stuff is under T.M. Richardson. I've only been quote unquote professionally published or officially published. I think this is going on my third year now. But in
Okay.
that time, I've written 5 books.
Okay. Busy.
five
You're
books. Um, put out 5 books, so it's been a very busy 3 and almost 4 years. Um, I started way back. I mean, I've always been a writer, but when I decided to like really professionally like pursue this, it was like right before the pandemic, and I was going through a lot of different changes, and I was like, you know what, life is short. I'm about to turn 40. I don't want to, live with any regrets. And so I told my husband I'm going to pause some things I was doing. I was a PhD student at the time. I was like, I'm going to pause that. I'm interested in like pursuing writing romance and writing books. And he said, okay, if you're very serious about it, then, do it. And so, just went from one student of literature to another type of student of literature,
Oh,
to kind of like, study the genre of the craft and things like that, before I decided to, pursue the path of publishing and being an author. So it's been a journey, but being an author isn't everything I am. Like I mentioned in my bio, I'm a mom and a wife, and I have my own quirks and and eccentricities. But I'm just me. I'm just me. And I hope I'm writing things that reflect who I am and the collective of Black women that surround me. So yeah.
and you definitely are, just in reading this book and knowing a little bit about the things that you do. What
Hmm.
I love about your work, Tati, is that you really think about people that we don't necessarily always see featured in books, whether it
Yeah.
is people who are a little bit more mature, as these characters are in Losing Sight. Even though for me, it's hard to say that mature because they're still younger than me, but but
For
mature.
romance, they're mature because romance usually features, people in their 20s who are,
Right.
hot and limber and all that good stuff. But when I first started out writing romance, I attempted to write something with people in their like maybe early 30s and stuff. And I said, I don't like I remember that time, but
Right.
I felt like kind of disconnected from that. And I
Right.
felt solidly, moving toward my 40s. I was like, I think I want to write art that features people in their 40s, people who are around my age and my demographic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we don't really see people in their 40s a lot. We don't see a lot of, most of my characters are plus size. We don't see a lot of plus size women.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see a lot of Black women. And I particularly, I always do this, but I try to pick or put Black women in professions that you don't see us in either a lot as well. I know my first book had architects. This book has a sports reporter. The next book will have, a sports agent. So it's different, different careers that you don't necessarily see us in too. So I wanted to, Black women, most educated group in the country. Therefore, we're in all these fields. So yeah.
Yes, and that's what makes your work so special because, as you mentioned in this book, we're looking at someone who is a reporter in
Hmm.
sports. And even though over the last few years we start to see more women doing that,
Hmm.
I know, well, really, honestly, women in any genre that or career field that is dominated by men are always going to have challenges. But then
Right.
you take the challenges that you would have just as being a woman and then add Black onto
Hmm.
it, then add being of a certain age onto it, being full
Right.
figure, having, being fully melanated,
Yes.
all of those things,
Yes.
all of those things. And I love that in this particular book, you don't shy away from that. So just one last question before we start talking
Sure.
about Losing Sight. Now, I know you said you've always sort of been a writer. Now, your bio says that you were able to read complete sentences by the age of 3. So
Yes.
I find that pretty exciting.
Yes. Yes.
So your mom had you in the books.
Yeah, she was a voracious reader. I remember being small like that and going to the library for the first time and getting books and stuff like that. In Atlanta, and you're in Atlanta as well. That
Mm-hmm.
bookstore, I mean, we used to go to like Shrine of the Black Madonna in the West
Yes.
End and
Mm-hmm.
get books and stuff like that all the time. And that was one of the few places I remember having like Black children's books.
Yes.
Sometimes. So yeah, I've always been a reader, and then I got to the point where when I was little, I would make up my own like stories. Like the bedtime stories got old. Like her reading me the stories got old, and
Mhm.
after a while, I started telling her stories.
I love that.
And my father and her would tell the same story that I would make up these like crazy fairy tales instead of like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It would be like Snow White and the Seven Pips or whatever.
Are them pips or pimps?
No, Pips, like Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Oh, okay. How about that? I hope it wasn't pimps.
No, not Pimp, Pips.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh
so
man.
I would just make up my own stories all the time, and I always did like creative writing contests and stuff like that. I moved on to, as I got older, majoring in English as an undergrad and as a master's student, I was a PhD in English as well. So yeah, reading and stuff has always been with me. I don't remember a time when there wasn't a book in my hand at some
I love
point.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. And you discovered romance when you were a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. Well, probably before that, like, mom sneaking around and reading the stuff my mom had in the house.
Hmm.
She had, some classics by certain people, and then she had like the Danielle Steels and the Judith Krantz and the all those things like that, and some of the bodice rippers, from Harlequin and stuff like that. She'd have those there as well. But I remember going to the library, and I was like maybe 13, 14, something like that, and seeing Beverly Jenkins' book. I think it was Night Song. I think it was her first book that
Oh
came out.
yes, yes.
And I remember seeing that cover, and I was like, "There's some black people on the cover, and it looked like a western. Like, what is that?"
Right.
And so I remember reading that distinctly, and I was like, "Oh, I'm hooked." I just knew then I loved the like genre, the kind of genre of romance, and from there I just kind of just absorbed everything. I've read everything, and
Right.
it's crazy because the two genres that I read the most of are romance and then science fiction. And
Okay.
so, like, sometimes I blend the two in my writing with other things, but yeah, I've always read those two genres the most. But yeah, romance. When I started to be like a student, I was like, oh, I have to, study something serious. So I'm gonna like study, study the study science fiction, and my whole thesis and stuff was on speculative fiction.
Okay.
But when I decided to like try to write my dissertation and stuff, it just wasn't working for me. And um, I was like, you know what? The only thing that was truly making me happy is I picked up a romance, started rereading the old things that I love, the Brenda Jacksons, the Beverly Jenkins, discovered some other people on the indie side that I hadn't really heard of and stuff like that. I just got really back into reading romance. I never really stepped away from it, but
Okay.
I just went heavier into it
Mhm.
than I did before. And I was like, yeah, this is my happy place. I don't want to leave it. So
And it's important to be in your happy place because the work that comes out, it shows when you
yes,
are really committed to what it is that you're writing, and you
yes,
believe in the story, you believe in the characters, and as I said again, telling contemporary stories with people that we don't always see. And in case you all missed it, Brenda Jackson, who you just mentioned, was my last guest last Wednesday. So if you go to YouTube, you can look that up. We had a great time. She just put out number 150. So we had a
yes,
great conversation talking about that.
yes, yes.
So losing sight. I love it. Number one, the cover. It's like, is this about you?
People keep saying that. Looks like me. It looks like my husband. Um,
Uh-huh.
it is not me. The glasses are very similar. Um, and I mean, we sent out PR packages for certain bookstores and sellers, and we put my same exact glasses, my black glasses, one I wear most of the time, that one on the back cover. We sent
Mhm.
those out to people so they could kind of look kind of like Tanika and stuff like
Right,
that. But
right.
the glasses are very. I don't know how the artist did that. Shout out to Millie Belizaire, who did
Mhm.
um the art. I think that's her name. I'm sorry, I might be saying it wrong, but she did an amazing job,
Mhm.
and amazing, amazing, amazing art.
Mhm.
So yeah, she I don't know how she captured a little bit of me, I guess, and my
Yes.
husband. And it's so weird, so weird.
It is. It is. It's good weird though.
Very
Because
weird,
it
very
looks
weird.
like it looks like you, even though we know it's not you.
Yeah.
But for those who haven't had a chance to read Losing Sight yet, tell us a little bit about a kind of a synopsis of what the story is about.
Losing Sight is about Tanika Ryan, who is a sports reporter for like a big network, sort of like CNN, I mean ESPN, excuse me. And she has been recently kind of demoted from her like position of being a premier football analyst, basically on like Thursday Night Football, and she's been demoted to like the infomercial hour of sports, like with crazy sports, like that people watch at like 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason is they moved in a younger person to take her place. The other part of the reason is Tanika's eyesight has been failing her, and she's been flubbing lines, and she's very much in denial of the fact that she needs to get her vision checked.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens which forces her to get her eyes checked. Enter Gideon Miles, Dr. Gideon Miles, who's her best friend's cousin, who is a widowed optometrist, and he's has a practice that's kind of not been doing that great since his wife died. And he's trying to, get back out there and get his business going, and also, get back out there to pursue love and things like that. And he's kind of had his eye on Tanika ever since he saw her at his cousin's, backyard barbecue.
Right.
And their paths cross, and some magical things happen that are kind of forcing them together, which include a very interesting pair of glasses that she gets while she's at Gideon's practice by in a very mysterious way. I'll just say
Yes.
that. So yeah, that's what it's about, and sort of their journey to a relationship, and all these things happen along the way. Tanika meets all these men, who,
Mm-hmm.
and she meets has all these circumstances and things like that. But the steady part of the story is Gideon and his love for her, and even though he's stubborn at times,
Right. Right.
his love for her is what carries the story, and it's about their journey to getting to happily ever after.
Yes, and oh, what a journey it is.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, the cast of characters, and
yes.
it's just I really enjoyed the story. I gotta tell you, Tati, it's like I started it because I always read right before I do my interview, so everything
Mhm.
is fresh. But I started it yesterday morning. I did it like in one day. But maybe took a couple naps in between, but
Yeah,
I pretty much read it all, in one
yes.
day.
I think it's a quick read. Yeah, it's a pretty
Yes,
quick read.
yes, but it was such a good story, and I kept wanting, what's going to happen? Because of course we know in romance, there's going to be certain things we know are ultimately going to happen,
Yes.
but it's like, how do you get to that
How do you get
space?
to it? It's the
How do
journey.
you
Yeah,
get there? It is definitely a journey. So of course, when we first meet our lead character, Nikki Tanika, she's kind of going back and forth, with her names, just depending on what's happening with work. She
yeah.
is in a space that a lot of times women may find themselves in that, she's this, in her early 40s, and she's in this industry, as we've already mentioned, a sports reporter, primarily dominated by men. She's
Hmm.
aging, she can't see
Yeah, yeah,
big
yeah.
thing. But I mean, of course, as you read the book, you find out it was more to it than just that. But that was a thing that they were able to use as an excuse to
Hmm.
kind of push her to the side. But just think of in those spaces where women have to show up, and it's all about how you look
Hmm.
more so than necessarily, what's in your mind. So
Right.
just in formulating that part of the story, um, how important was it for you to kind of show what that looks like from the perspective of someone who would be in that position?
It was super important because, like I said, particularly Black women, when we're in these spaces, whether it be corporate spaces or academic spaces, um, so much of we can't help but bring the totality of who we are to things.
Mm-hmm.
We can't hide on the surface that we are Black or that we are women. If you identify as a woman, you can't hide these things. Especially racially, you just can't. You cannot hide these things unless you are white presenting. But for just us Black folk every day, it's difficult to show up as your whole self in these places, and a lot of times they want to kind of squash and make who you are smaller,
Mm-hmm.
to fit their own narratives of what they think Black women should be. And I think for Nikki, she's struggling with that. She's compromised so much of who she is to get to this coveted spot, in sports journalism. She's changed her name. She's done the diet. She's worn the wigs. I wear wigs too, but
Hey,
but she's done it not because she likes it. She's doing it because she has to. And
right.
anytime you have to do something, in order to fit into a mold, it's going to make you miserable. And in essence, she was miserable. And she knew that there was better for her out there, and she's ambitious. And a lot
Right.
of times when you're black and you are ambitious, you have goals, you have dreams, you have aspirations, people don't want to see you rise to the occasion. And for
Right.
Nikki, Tanika, part of that was kind of this network of, the systems in place at her job that
Mm-hmm.
weren't allowing her to like live up to her true potential. And in other words, we're just trying to like, you know, make her feel like she was just a cog in the wheel, even though she was holding the wheel together. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is a lot of what black women are sometimes.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was super important for me. I think that's something that all of us black women can relate to. We've been in positions on the job. Like I said, doesn't matter the industry. You could be a fry cook at McDonald's. You could
Right.
be a Fortune 500 CEO. There are times where people are going to make you feel small for who you are as a black woman. And yeah, yeah.
Which is so unfortunate. And then, like in the story, we do see where, she's gone through these changes. She's been really kind of demoted when they bring this other woman, as you kind of mentioned, this younger, racially ambiguous,
Yes.
not as smart,
I wouldn't say
doesn't
not as
have the
smart, just not as
doesn't have the
not as
experience,
knowledgeable.
not
Yeah,
as knowledgeable.
yeah,
Yes.
not as knowledgeable. Yeah,
And to be able to do specifically what she was doing.
right.
So it's like, this person comes in and she's getting the job only because of, we find out more, but a lot of it's because of what she presents. But, to
Hmm.
be demoted and then to have to watch somebody else do what you were doing well,
And then they ask you to help this person do your job.
ask you to help that person. Then
Ask
when
you to
that
help them
person
do their
messes up, they come back to you to
job.
be the
Exactly.
cleanup woman.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I think relatable. I think, like I said, we've all been there in those
Yes.
situations where we you know, they bring somebody in to do the job, and then but let's call so and so because it's not working. Let's call her to fix it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But one of the things, though, I guess, kind of the good part of course, in the way that the story is told, by her being in these places that maybe she wouldn't be under normal circumstances, we get introduced to other parts of sports because, of course, she's
Yes.
big with football at first,
Yes.
but these are some of the side characters that were really interesting. She gets to meet Colin, who is a
Yes.
racer,
Car driver. Yeah.
race car driver, which is interesting because that's another field where you don't necessarily see as many black, of course it's men in this case, but you don't see as many and things like that. So I
Hmm.
guess for you as a writer, that meant you had to do some research, or are you also already kind of a follower?
I'm a sports girly. Period. Like
Oh,
I love sports,
okay.
but
Okay.
the stock car stuff, I can't really say NASCAR, but stock car stuff, F1 stuff, I owe that all to my dad. When I was growing
Okay.
up, my dad, I joke and say he's a black redneck because like we would go to like, he's the person that took me to every single race, like
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta Motor Speedway, Talladega, Daytona, Darlington, Lowe's, and Charlotte. I have literally been to almost every racetrack in the Southeast I've been
Oh,
to
wow.
growing up. And, I've seen, the Bill Elliott's and the Richard Petty's and all these people, Jeff Gordon, and I can go on and on and on. I've seen them race, I've even seen Danica Patrick race one of her
Okay.
early races when she was racing. So, and then my dad likes drag races. So we would go, see drag races and stuff like that too. So there wasn't a time where I wasn't exposed to motorsports, and
Gotcha.
then he would watch, F1, which is from Europe. So he'd watch that and stuff like that. And he kind of introduced me, have you heard this dude, Lewis Hamilton, and, stuff like that. So it's my dad really is the person who exposed me to all of that. So he was the person I consulted for that part of the book.
Okay. For
So
that
I was
area.
like, Dad, when does the race season start, and what would happen in here, and what does the garage have, and some stuff I had looked up myself. A lot of resources out there on YouTube and stuff. And believe it or not, NASCAR and stock car has a huge initiative where they're trying to get more black people in, particularly in the pits and stuff like that, and in the crews for
Mhm.
these teams. So if you go on TikTok, ladies, I'm telling y'all, go on TikTok and
Lady.
type in black NASCAR, and you'll see all these black men who are working for these crews, handsome black men working for
Okay.
these crews in various NASCAR, teams. So it's really cool. I mean, more of us are coming. I think they want to change the culture of NASCAR from it being so completely southern and kind of white to something a
Right.
lot more inclusive. Yeah.
Right. I
So
like that.
yeah, so again, did my research on that. Now I know nothing about rodeo ride and bull ride and stuff like that.
Yes, that's one of the
I
other
just
characters.
honestly, I just selfishly just want to throw a cowboy in there
All right.
because I love cowboys. So I just selfishly want to just throw a cowboy in there. So Ray Lee was my kind of experiment to see how I would do riding a cowboy.
Yes.
My friend, one of my good friends, is like, when is that cowboy story coming? Are we ever gonna get it? And I'm like, eventually, let me write all the other stuff, but eventually we will. So yeah,
Oh yes, yes, and he was quite an interesting character as well.
yeah,
And of course, right now, I mean, we know
yeah,
that the culture has been there for a long, 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 long time.
centuries.
Anything like
Yes,
the Bill Pickett Rodeo and things like
yes,
that. But it's
yes,
just like more recently we are starting to see more interest just because Cowboy Carter and all
yeah,
the other
yeah,
things that are happening on the heels of that we're seeing more people actually showing an interest in it that might be outside of, say, Texas,
yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
places where it's been
And
more
it's
popular.
it's reclaiming a culture that we've always been a part of.
Always been a
Say what
part.
1 in 4 cowboys in the West were black.
Right.
So, and even the moniker of cowboy was something, given to black people. Everybody else was a hand, a
Mm,
hand on the farm or something like that. But you're a
mm,
cowboy who handled the cows and things like that. So the culture is interesting. And fun. I learned something the other day that I did not know.
okay.
Um, because black people were, and this is so off topic, but so because black people, we were the indigo growers. They
Hmm.
brought us over from Africa to grow indigo,
Hmm.
and on the coast of the Carolinas and stuff like that. And of course, we grew cotton. We invented blue jeans. We
Hmm.
invented blue jeans. We took that rough cotton that they couldn't do anything with and dyed it with the blue and the indigo, and we invented blue jeans. And I was like, I didn't even know that as a black person. I wear jeans every day. So I was just
Right.
like, I couldn't believe that. But, so much of Western culture, so much of, you know, every industry, every facet, every sport in America that has touched American soil has been influenced by black people in some way. Hockey too. If I threw a hockey player, and I could probably connect that to somebody black as
Right.
well.
True. Yes.
So it's we have touched all facets of sports, and like I said, I'm a sports girly. I love sports. I want to include us in sports, and I want to feature sports again. We're not always talking about being in, just like professions. We're not always talking about being in. So
Yes, and that was good because I had the opportunity to learn some things because I am not a sports girly, but it was an opportunity for me to just learn some things that I didn't know about, those two particular sports. So,
mhm,
as Nikki is going through this transitional phase, she's getting to interact with a couple of men, one that
mhm,
is a race car driver, one is who's a rodeo cowboy. So we get to
mhm.
see that all the while there is this thing going on that she's beginning to develop with Gideon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I like his look. You say he looks like your husband.
He definitely looks like my husband. Yes, yes,
That
yes.
bald head and that
Bald
gray
head, gray beard. Yes,
the glasses,
and he has.
very distinguished looking gentleman who, very smart, who is going through some things
Mhm,
because, again, he has, you've already said it, he's lost his wife, his business has struggled because she was kind of like the glue that
mhm,
held things together for him. So he, even though, he meets Nikki and he's attracted to her, there's certain things that he's really dealing with,
yeah.
just grief and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah. He feels this level of guilt that he parts of himself like feels like he's in mourning and he can't move on. From um, the loss of his wife, even though it's been a couple years, and he's still just like she's her essence is literally still around, still around in all aspects in the office, at home. He cannot escape her.
Mhm.
And so Nikki, Tanika challenges him in ways like, can I really move on? Can I really, do I really have room in my heart for somebody? Can I still, be, sexually expressive with somebody? Can I still, have desire for somebody when I loved someone so much? Do I have that capacity to love again? Um, and I've it's funny because this book and in another book that I wrote under my indie name, they both deal with people who have lost somebody.
Okay.
People dealing with grief and trying to move on, and one moves on in a very different way, but the other, this one, he's trying to find it in relationship with another woman. Um, but yeah, I think because I was going through my own kind of periods of grief, it
Mhm.
kind of seeped through in some of the things I was writing, and so yeah, my friend was like, "Are you gonna stop writing these dead parents?" I was like,
Well, I
I
mean,
was like, man, when you get to a certain age, though, like when we're in our 40s and stuff, sometimes the parents are gone. I mean,
that's just real.
it's just real. It's just the reality of things. But the next one, you know, the parents would not necessarily be. It would not be like this huge hole of grief. I don't think. You know,
Right.
you
And
never
I
know.
mean, but I mean, as you said, it's something as real as we get older, and not just
Yeah.
necessarily the loss of parents. It can be. It can be the loss of children.
Yes,
Can be
children.
the,
Yes.
the loss of spouses, because a lot of
Yes.
times people think, oh, maybe divorce, but there are
Hmm.
people who can be, even younger than what he is in this book, because he's in his early 40s, but
Yeah.
people do lose spouses for a lot of different, in a lot of different ways, and just
Yes.
what does that really look like? Because
Hmm.
there are some people who might move on almost immediately, or people are
Hmm.
giving them the side eye, like, why are you
Yeah.
moving on so quickly? But then there are others who it takes a while to
Hmm.
to kind of think about love again, because whenever you put it this way, love and loss is hard, even if you just break up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And trying to adjust the pieces of your life when somebody was in it for so long,
Right.
it doesn't make sense. Like, the smallest, most minute things, you know, are become, monumentous, and trying to navigate that is hard. It's really, really hard. And I think for Gideon, um, he's been so consumed with grief
Mm-hmm.
that, and everybody sees that he's suffering, that he's forgetting that he's still young. He still has a
Right.
lot of life to live, a lot of
Absolutely.
life ahead of him, and that he shouldn't squander the life that he has now,
Mm-hmm.
um, in order to like just kind of move on and take a chance with Tanika, and seeing if something's there. So sometimes it take a little magic, like I said in the book,
Yeah,
to
there's
kind of
some
get them
magical
together.
things going on. Y'all have to read it, because if you haven't watched before, just so you know, no spoilers. We're not
Yes,
going to tell you
no
the whole.
spoilers.
We're not going to tell you the whole book.
No.
but yes, there's some magic going on. Magic. And then we
Yes.
also have just an interesting cast of characters that are really, supportive of this couple
Yes.
as well, because
Yes.
of course you already mentioned his cousin Jackie, who
Yes.
is friends to Nikki, and she's like, "Hey, I want you to meet this lady. I think you all will hit it off."
Hmm.
Which, of course, when they first meet, it's not really what you
Yeah.
might hope it would be initially, but ultimately they do come together. But then
Hmm.
I also appreciated Celeste, who was his
Yes.
sister-in-law.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Um, I think Celeste is kind of like that tether between his wife, his old life, his new life. And
Mm,
she's there to kind of remind him that, yes, you love my sister. You'll always be my, because she calls him her brother, not a brother-in-law. You'll always be my brother, and things like that. So family looks different, can look different,
mm-hmm,
even and even after somebody's gone. So she's still kind of that tether to his life with Lauren, but at the same time, she's also there to support him through whatever the journey is to getting over the grief is. And so is Jackie in her
yeah.
own very
But
interesting way.
else.
Yeah, she's off the chain. Jackie's off the chain. Wait till y'all read her book next. But
Yeah, when you said agent, I thought it was her. So we'll talk about that a little
yeah,
later. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Jackie is interesting, and then you have Bronwyn, and who's
Mm,
very kooky and very quirky and things like that, and then Maya, her assistant. So I think for me as a black woman, I find it, and I notice this with all books I read written by black women. We rarely ever write a black woman who's just by herself, just doing her thing, because
that's
that's
true.
not how it works. We we we
Mhm.
we we always have a village around her, whether it be cousins or best friends, sororities, or whatever. We have a village of other women around us supporting us along the way in whatever we're doing. So I just definitely couldn't write a story where a woman is just traversing this craziness at work and her eyesight and all these other things and trying to find love without her having people to cheer her on or support her
Mhm.
or bring her back down to earth when she's losing it and stuff like that, because you definitely need those people in your corner.
Yes,
So building that world of friendship around the main character is super super important.
it
Like I
really.
said, for Gideon it's Celeste and Jackie.
Mhm.
For Tanika, it's her girlfriends and who are super super important, who are like a second family to her. So in a little ways, it's kind of like a found family.
That's
But at the same time, it's just about how the bonds of friendship, support us along the way to happiness.
and I love it because that's kind of how I feel about friendships. Building a tribe. Having those people that you can count on because you can know a whole lot of people. Both of us are sorority sisters. Me, SG Row, you Zeta Phi Beta.
Yes,
They
yes.
actually, speaking of sorors, one of mine has a comment. I got to put that up. Says I wear glasses. I love
Yes,
this.
yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I used to wear glasses. I actually had surgery, so but yeah, when I'm reading, I'm wearing some glasses. Just to help me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, just those relationships are so important. And the day before, well, Saturday, there was an event here locally of the Black Girl Book Fest here in Atlanta,
Right,
the first of
right.
many. But I actually went with some of my sister friends. One I've known since the seventh grade. One I just met that day. But when we all sat around a table and broke bread, we were having that conversation about how
Mhm,
important it is to have these friendships, to have the tribe, because, or, the sisterhood, because oftentimes, as we get older, there may or may not be a mate. You might have children, but it's no guarantee that your children are going to be, in a position to look after you or whatever the case
mhm,
may be.
mhm.
So it's good to have those people that you can lean on. It's going to, call you out and call you in.
Exactly,
You
exactly,
know.
exactly,
So
exactly.
I love seeing that in this book, and the fact that it was in multi generational friendships as well.
Yeah, you have kind of Maya, who's kind of like a little sister.
Yes.
I'd say I didn't really put an age on Maya, but I'd say like late 20s, early
Hmm.
30s. And so you have her where she's kind of learning from them, and but they still make her feel part of the group. They don't isolate her and things like that. You have Sarah, who eventually comes into the fold as well, who's younger. But it's about lifting up and not isolating and things like that. I think oftentimes when you see women who are like Gen X, between millennial, zennial, I can say zennial, this is kind of rift between us and like millennials, like, oh,
Hmm.
y'all don't know what y'all talking about, and da da da. There's like this generational divide. But at the same time, we still have a lot in common. Some things just never
Absolutely.
change.
Absolutely.
So it's really about kind of lifting up and telling them about your journey so they can like not make the same pitfalls you do, as they continue on. Because at the same time, you want to grow, you want to strive, you want to, you know, um, lift as you climb, basically.
Right.
And it's funny because I was having that same conversation with author friends, black authors, about this as well. There's a myriad of us black romance authors who are both indie, both trad, or like myself, who is hybrid, who does both. And it's like, we're not in competition with each other.
Exactly.
We all have different readerships and things like that, and people who like what we write. So it doesn't hurt to support you. It doesn't hurt to lift somebody else's,
Mhm.
name up in spaces where they may not be, and things like that. So it's just sisterhood in
It's
all facets is just important.
It is so important. And as you say that, it reminds me, I mentioned that the last time we saw each other was at the Decatur Book Festival
Yes,
last fall.
yes,
And talking about that, your sister Danielle Allen did
yes,
that for you.
yes,
She was
yes,
talking
yes,
about her book, Curvy Girl Summer, and
yes.
she mentioned you. She said, "Oh, y'all got to read Tati Richardson. You think I'm spicy? Wait till you read Tati." I was like, "Oh."
Danielle got. I don't know why she's saying that because she got me beat, but but she got me beat in some things. If y'all read when y'all read Plus Size Player when it comes out, yeah,
Yeah.
y'all will see. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's sitting over here on the side. She is coming back to
yes,
talk about plus size
she
player.
is wonderful. She's one. Like I
Yeah,
said, the friendships I've made along this journey to
yeah.
being an author have been immense. She is one of my friends. I'm lucky and blessed to call her a friend. I'm lucky and blessed to call, some other people friends and some sorors who are also romance writers.
Mm-hmm.
Naima Simone, Rebecca Weatherspoon, just off the top of my head. So it's just like I'm glad that they don't gatekeep
Right.
along this journey because especially as a person who again is doing both in an indie space and a traditional space, I kind of need to know what to do where, and how things work where. So it's been super super invaluable to have like writer friends who you can type instead of putting it online, you putting it in a group chat.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
please, if you're gonna be a writer, get a group of friends. Don't be posting stuff on online like that. But yeah, get a group chat, a trusted group chat that that they'll keep your secrets for you. So yeah,
Yes, that's so important. That's so important. And hold you
yeah,
accountable.
and
Ask you
hold you
those
accountable.
ask you
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
questions. Ask you those questions. So, of course, as we know, this is a romance book. So we
Hmm.
are watching this couple, Gideon and Nikki, go through all of the things it takes, to decide. I know I kind of like you. I'm attracted to you. I'm looking at you and I'm seeing something special about you because I'm wearing these glasses. It's
Yes,
giving me a little magic. So y'all
yeah,
got to read it to see what it's all about. But it's still a process, as
hmm,
everyone has to go through. When they're trying to, we've already talked about some of the things with Gideon and grief and all of that. You also don't shy away the fact that for some women who are high achieving and looking to do more, sometimes it's work that gets in the way.
yes. Yes, the pursuit of work, the pursuit of perfection, particularly for Nikki, is a thing that's like getting in her way of finding happiness. So, at every turn, there's a work thing. There's this, there's that that's preventing her from, spending time with Gideon. And he's quite understanding because he's like, yeah, she got this high powered job and
Mhm.
it takes her away. I understand that. But at the same time, the job literally gets in the way of their relationship,
Right, right,
and the growth of that relationship. This isn't to say women should make themselves small or make their goals small. It
right.
just takes somebody very, very understanding,
That's
to
the
kind of
part.
rock with you as you go along this kind of professional journey.
Mhm.
And for Nikki, like, that's been the kind of the pitfall of her dating life.
Mhm.
She's unable to find men who understand the nature of her job, or if she did find somebody who knew what she did, they want to just kind of get in her circle to meet
That part.
certain people, athletes and things like that she could put them in position to be in near or whatever. So yeah, it's hard for Nikki, and not only that, Nikki got her own daddy issues,
Right. Yeah.
that she's contending with as well when it comes to love and trust and opening herself up fully and completely. All those things kind of factor into her journey with trying to get to know Gideon and on a deeper level.
So yes, they both got issues.
They're human. Humans have issues, and I don't think characters aren't interesting if they don't have issues, or don't have a wound of some sort, because that's what the character motivation is like healing that wound that's going on in them, and that other person seeing the wound and not faulting them for it. That's what the journey to the happily ever after is really about. Yeah.
And that is so good because, I mean, I know this is fiction, but hey, in real life, we're all, those of us who are single are looking for that, that
Hmm.
person who can like see you and understand you and be someone to come into your life to help to uplift you and not
That's
be someone
definitely.
who's trying to tear you down and what it is. So it's something that,
Yeah.
everybody, who's interested in relationship wants that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
and it's just good to see that, and and to understand that, as you said, I mean, y'all got to read the book to know, but the job does kind of create some issues just because some of the things that are happening, and
Hmm.
for a lot of men, I think yes, there would be the ones who would want to know her because, oh yeah, I want to meet XYZ superstar football player, basketball player,
Hmm.
whatever. But
Hmm.
then there was some who would be intimidated by the fact that she is always around these men.
Exactly, exactly. And that's Gideon's insecurity is about that too. Like she's
Hmm.
Nikki Ryan, she's Tanika Ryan, she's around athletes all the time. Why would she want like an optometrist? Why would she want somebody with my just a regular dude?
Hmm.
But because she's around all these people, she's not impressed. It's just like it's a job.
Hmm.
And somebody who understands the fundamental crux of who she is and just gets the everyday things that she likes, like sneakers and going to hole in the wall restaurants and all these things. That's the kind of person she needs. She
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily need a millionaire baller or GM or whatever,
Right.
or another exec. Um, she needs somebody who just understands fundamentally who she is. Yeah.
Right. And honestly, I think relationships like that are good anyway. Because if everybody's here,
Yes.
there's a level of competition
Yes.
that you're
Yes.
going to run up against. So I
Yes.
like the fact that he's regular degular. He doesn't feel regular degular to me. He's definitely not regular degular.
Well, I'm not gonna make the male main character. He can have a regular job. He's still gonna be a lover boy.
He's a lover. Yeah, we got to
He's
go
still gonna be a
these
lover
last
boy.
couple minutes. We got to go there
Yes.
because as your good friend Danielle says, you write the good spice. And I love the way that you tell the love story, the spice included
Yeah.
in that, because I mean we're talking about fully grown
Hmm.
40 plus people who they're not new to this, they're true to this.
Yes. Yes. They communicate what they want
They
effectively.
communicate what they want,
Yes.
and that's a pleasure, literally and figuratively, to read, just
Yes.
because I mean that's real. That's
Yes.
real.
Yes. I think for me, I tried writing like closed door scenes and it just doesn't work for me. It fundamentally isn't who I am as a
Mm-hmm.
person, given all the experiences I've had in my life. It is just not
Right.
who I am. But for me, putting pleasure on the page, explicit pleasure on the page, seeing a black woman take ownership of her pleasure, expressing her pleasure, seeing a black man give her these pleasures, is important to me because some people don't think you know they think sex between us is one way, and it's
Right.
it's not. Sex between us comes in a myriad of ways. You'll see in the next book it'll evolve into something else. But everybody, and it's good to see people of a certain age
Right.
having sex on
Right.
page because people oftentimes think, oh well, they ain't getting it on like that. They old, they ain't getting it on like that. Y'all in y'all 40s,
Don't
50s.
believe it.
I'm just like, you're not dead. You know what I'm saying? If you still have
Right.
breath in your body, you still have desires.
Right.
If you're able to express it, even people who are, disabled and, may have different, other capabilities, they still have desires. They
Absolutely.
still express, they still want intimacy. They still just, it's a basic human function.
Right.
Is to not is to crave that type of thing. Unless you're a completely asexual person,
Right.
which is totally different. But um, my characters are not asexual,
Not at
really.
all.
But it's putting the desire on pages is really important to me, and expressing that is really important, and having the desire be told from both points of view, from the
Yes,
male point of view, from the female
that's
point
true.
of view, also important to me. Some readers don't like that. Some readers don't like, oh, why is the man doing a sex scene? Well, men feel things too when they're having sex. They're
You
not
see the
just
look
there.
on my face, like,
Yeah, they're not just doing the mechanics. They feel things
right.
too.
Absolutely.
So they have their own insecurities. Oh, am I okay? Is she enjoying this? So on and so forth. At least a man who is sure of himself will acknowledge that he has these insecurities, right? So showing sex scenes and intimate scenes between, from both perspectives is important to me too. Yeah.
Yeah, that is important because a lot of times, as women, we may have misconceptions of what it means from a male perspective. We think, oh, he just wants to, as long as he gets what he came for,
Right. Right.
that's
Right.
all that
Right.
really matters. And
Right.
he may not be thinking about, you know, the things that he's thinking about
Mhm.
emotionally,
Mhm.
because that is something that we see, with Gideon, because he is in this space of he's grieved for a couple of years.
And he hasn't been intimate
He
in a
hasn't been
long
intimate
time,
for a long time.
so he's it's like, okay, can I is it like get on a bike? Can I do can I still, satisfy a woman?
Right,
It's been years since been able to do that. Can I still do it?
right,
Is she gonna like what she sees,
right.
that type of thing. And I think
Mhm.
it's totally unfair to think men don't have those same types of insecurities.
Absolutely. There's one scene where I like it because I'm not saying all it is, but like where Nikki is like, I'm showing you this body, and you're gonna see, the little extra weight in the middle, and you're gonna
Yeah.
see these stretch marks, and all these sorts of things. I really appreciated that as well because those things are real. Our
Yeah.
bodies change as we get older. You might have been a size 6, you might be a size 16. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So the body
Exactly.
changes. And the fact that just because the body doesn't look like, a 22 or 25-year-old body doesn't mean
Hmm.
it's not still sexy or desirable. So
Exactly.
it's important to see that as well.
Exactly. And Gideon has liked what he's seen already. He's
Right,
seen it a couple years before, months before. So he's like, oh,
right.
I like that. I like what she has.
I'm okay with
Um,
it as it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
So yes, so I appreciated it. I know those who read it will appreciate it, or at least they I hope that they do.
yeah.
Especially if you're, of a person of a certain age, and just realizing that, hey, we hear the stories all the time. People in nursing homes still be trying to get it on. So don't faint.
Still is still be trying to get it on. The Viagra granddaddies are still at it.
And some of them still be making babies. So don't believe.
Yes. Oh Lord, yes.
So don't believe that just because a person that is of a certain age that that somehow they've lost that, desire,
Yeah.
and then they're not still having fun. Yeah, their knees might hurt.
Yes, your knees might hurt. You might not be able to get on top as long as you need to, but it happens. Things happen.
You make it
It
work.
happens.
Make
You
it
make
work.
it work. Yes.
You make it work. So I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So everybody, please, I suggest that you get and read Losing Sight because it's a really great, great, great story. We talked about, kind of the big themes and things that you can expect so you're not caught off guard when you pick it up to read it.
Hmm.
But, just know that we see real life. We see real adults having real adult type situations and things like that in their
Hmm.
lives, and how they navigate those things both in their careers, their work, with their dreams, with their desires, romance, sex, friendships,
Yeah.
family, all of that. We see
All
all
of
of
that.
these things mixed up in these stories. So that's the other
Hmm.
thing. And just the last comment I wanted to make about the book, Tati, is that I love that all of those things are in there because it feels real. It feels like these are people that I know.
Yeah. 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 I wanted to make it relatable. I want to make it feel like this could be your friend group too.
Exactly. It
Hmm.
definitely feels like people that I know. We have another comment from Ali. Ali says, Ali, I love this book so much and can't wait for the next one. Yes.
Thank you, Allie. I appreciate it.
So that's where I'm going next. Because since you did mention that
Yes.
we are going to pick up with Jackie's story in the
Yes.
next book,
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. We just announced it, I think last week.
Okay. Okay.
And it will be out spring 2026.
Okay.
It is called Struck Speechless. So, um, whereas Tanika's losing her eyesight, something crazy happens to Jackie and she's unable to talk. And Jackie is a sports agent who has
Mm-hmm.
is very talkative and her not being able to talk kind of hinders her ability to do her job. But enter Antonio Steele. We get a glimpse of him at the
Oh
end of
yes, we sure
Losing.
do. He's like, yeah, he's somebody she doesn't like in this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
she does not like him for many reasons, and you find out the reason why she doesn't like him
Okay.
in her book.
Okay.
But doesn't matter. It's very one sided because he has been jonesing for her for a decade. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a fun book. I hope y'all enjoy it when it comes out.
I know it will, and we're gonna get you. We're gonna get you in. Once you've been here, you're always welcome.
Thank
This
you.
is the first of many times, and yeah, when you just said that, it makes me think. Yeah, it makes me think of when you're a little kid and the little boy is like always pulling your hair, or whatever, and you be like, I don't know why he's always doing that because he likes it. That kind
And in this case, it wasn't pulling the hair. That's for sure. But
of okay, but
but yeah, it's a very one sided friend
mm,
rivals to lovers type of thing.
rivals to lovers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say enemies, more like frenemies, rivals to lovers.
Enemies.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So with losing sight, of course, it's only been out a matter of weeks, and you are still on the tour of going around and sharing
Yes.
your book with people. So
Yes.
where are some of the places or spaces that you might be in the weeks ahead that you're aware of?
Well, the main thing in May, I'll be at Black Romance Book Fest in
Mhm.
Atlanta. It's going to be basically a big family reunion of Black romance authors here and narrators as well. It's going to be a really good time. The end of uh, May 30th to June 1st.
Mhm.
And then I have a little bit of a break because I'm working on something else. I'm writing. And so I don't think I have anything else planned for the summer. But you never know. I might pop up somewhere here and there. But I know the other big thing is I'll be at Steamy Lit Con in Anaheim, California in October. So those are kind of the two big things right now. And then I have some things already in the works for 2026. But yeah, right now that's it for the kind of wrapping
Okay.
up the tour for Losing Sight.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, that sounds good. Now, under your TM Richardson, is there anything coming out under that?
Well,
Con-
I just released something 2 weeks ago. It was called The Opportunity, which is the third book in the Secret series, third and final book in the Secret series. That series is done. And then I have something else. I can't really talk about it right now because we have not announced it. That'll be under TM as well, which is kind of going to be a romantasy. So that's going to be something very, very different for me. But
okay.
I can't say anything about it just yet.
Fine. Well, for those who don't know, like me, what is romantasy? Kind of like a romance fantasy,
Yeah, it's
or
a romance fantasy, something
gotcha.
featuring. We gotta, I dabble with a little magical realism here in Losing Sight, but we're going
Yes.
full magic in the next one. We're going full magic, full creatures, yeah, and then the next one. Um, I don't, I got to do a lot of world building and stuff like that,
Okay.
but yeah, it's full magical things, but set in reality. So yeah,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I do know, as we talked about this before you came on, you have a full-time job and you're doing
yes,
all of this wonderful writing that you're doing.
yes, yes.
For those who might be in the similar situation, what, if anything, would you kind of get to inspire them, or thoughts about how you are able to manage your writing, time for writing, as well as holding down a 9 to 5?
It is writing is for me, writing is a calling, writing is a ministry, and writing is a craft. So I take it very seriously. I'm a very type A person, so I schedule my time. I schedule my time when I write. I schedule my time when I plot. I schedule my time my time when I do things. And if you are going to be dedicated to writing, you know, if you want to be an indie writer, if you want to be a traditionally published writer, you have to make the time for it. It's not to write. You don't have to write every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even recommend writing every day. You need to take a break sometimes. But I do say when you write, do be disciplined about it. Set out a schedule. I'm going to write from this time to this time. On these days, again, you may not write every day. Try to balance it with your own life, because your life comes first, and
Absolutely.
your mental health and all these things come first as well. I feel like I'm preaching because to myself, because sometimes I don't take my own advice. I
Yeah, I
don't take my
understand.
own advice. But try to be balanced. Try to balance everything out. It helps for me to have a partner who's understanding about
Yes.
these things and understand and supports my dreams. But even if you're single, believe in yourself, believe in what you can do, and study the craft, whatever the genre is that you want to write in, whether it be science fiction or romance or lit fic or women's fic, whatever you want to write. Study the genre, study the mechanics, study the plot points, the tropes, all these things. Study those things so you can get better acquainted with, what it is that you want to write. And the main thing, and I've said this time and time again, don't try to be the next whatever. Don't try to be the next, Kennedy Ryan or Tia Williams or whomever else. Be you. Find your voice. Don't try to emulate their voices. Find your voice, whatever that is. For me, I have two different voices. I have a voice that does,
Mm-hmm.
Tati Richardson. I have a voice that does T.M. Richardson. So, and I'm able to, because I'm on these two different paths as Indian trad, I'm able to marry those two. And then in Losing Sight, I was able to, bring a little bit of TM over in there with some of the heat.
Right.
So you find the balance for you. You find your voice. You find what works for you, and that's truly what really matters. You be you. Don't try to be anybody else.
All right. I love that. Be you. Yeah, beautiful. No, it made me my mug says hello beautiful, so that's what made me think of that. Okay, now I am wearing red. The red that I'm wearing right now is the Lip Bar Boss Lady. I know you
Nice.
said you have like 22 reds, or
I
you
probably
have
got more than that.
more
I
than that.
I, I got more than that. What I'm wearing now is, what am I wearing now? I'm wearing yeah, NARS Dragon Lady.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. All
yeah,
right. So always be on the lookout for a good popping red. Now, this, if you all are familiar with the lip bar, it is a black woman
black
owned
on.
company.
Yeah.
But yes, this is what I'm wearing, but I had to make sure I put on red since I know that you love your reds, Tati. So I'm
I
gonna keep
do love my red lipstick. Yes,
I,
I
I
do.
love it. I love it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank
It
you for
has been
having
a
me.
pleasure. Yes, and you'll be back. I already wrote it down, and I will reach out to you so we can get struck speechless on
Yes,
board for next year as well. And to everyone who's watching, thank you for being here. Please, please, please go out and grab a copy of Losing Sight at your favorite independent bookseller, wherever you buy books. There is also a Brown Girl Collective Bookstore, which is affiliated with Bookshop. So that's another space where you can find Losing Sight as well. So get in where you fit in and get a copy of this book as well as the build up as well if you haven't already read it.
yes.
Get in on all Tati's books. Tati Richardson, TM Richardson, get in where you fit in with all of her great works. And that's that. So Tati, I'm gonna let you grab some water, whatever the case may be. I'll be with you in just 1 second.
Okay.
All right, see you in a moment. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so that was indeed a pleasure. As I mentioned, I've been waiting to talk to Tati for a while. So I consider it an honor that she was here. Now, next week, we are switching gears a little bit because actually I've been doing a lot of romance in the last several weeks. But next week, next Monday, we will be talking to a young lady that I also had a chance to see on Saturday, also local to Atlanta. And her book is Prose to the People. Speaking of independent bookstores, Black-owned bookstores, Katie Mitchell will be here to talk about a celebration of Black bookstores. So join us next week for that. If you love Black bookstores, if you have favorites, if you want to know more about the history, above and beyond the fact that they sell books, Black bookstores are involved in so much more. So get ready for that conversation with Katie next Monday. So until then, I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. Actually, this Wednesday, I'm going to do some throwback stuff since I did just hit the 5 years of BGC Book Club. So be on the lookout for some throwback videos, some you may not have seen before, and just a celebration of all that BGC Book Club is. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this family, for sharing it out, for supporting all these wonderful Black women writers, as well as me. And I appreciate you and look forward to seeing you again real soon. Take good care.